Okay, let's start. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, give a yes if you can hear me. Thank you, thank you. Right, so welcome to our third lecture. The topic today is making ethical decisions in engineering. Right, so last week I mentioned that company should set ethics as the core value in their business. And in fact, engineers should also set ethics as the core value in decision making. In an ideal world, obviously, we should do it this way. But in real life, there are many factors that will affect our decision in complying engineering ethics. Let's say, for example, assume that now you are a team leader of your company. So now you are responsible for a product that will be launched tomorrow. However, earlier today, an engineer of the team came to you and said that he found some new evidence to show there are some safety concern about your product, and people will get hurt if they use it. So originally you have some idea there may be some problem with your product, but you have no evidence. But this time, today, you got the evidence. Okay, you know that really people will get hurt when using your product. So in this case, what are you going to do? So we know that the code of ethics of engineer clearly state that engineer should promote the health and safety of the public when performing our duty. But so in this case, if we want to comply the code of ethics, so we should cancel launch tomorrow to make sure that no one will use our product and get hurt. However, if I do so, then the company may lose a lot of money, and I may even be get fired. Okay, due to or even at least my position in the company will be very bad. So in this case, what are you going to do? Will you really sacrifice your prospect in the company and cancel the product in order just to fulfill the engine ethics? This kind of decision is very difficult to make, and in fact, it's more difficult if you only confine yourself to only two choices: yes or no, do or not do. In fact, in real life, there are always many options in between yes or no, do or not do. But if you want to find out all these options, then you need to have a more thorough investigation of the case before you make the decision. For example, you need to get the facts and find all the factors that will affect the decision. Let's say, for example, when I said that people will get injured when using my product, then how they will injured? Will they die due to my product or just hurt their fingertip, okay, when using my product? It's so much different. Or for example, when I said that the company will lose a lot of money, then how much money will be lost? 10 billion or 1 million only? They are also very much different. So it means that we should not rush into a conclusion, okay, to always tell myself, oh, I have only two choices, do or not do. We should always exercise our creativity to find out the alternative in between. But of course, to do so, you need to have a more systematic way to find out all the facts and factors before you make the decision. In academic, there are many people doing research on designing method to help people make that kind of ethical decisions. One of them is Professor Michael Davis from IIT. He suggests a 7-step guide for ethical decision making. It is not a magic wand that you can use it to solve any ethical decision. It's just a way that people to think more thoroughly before to avoid making emotional and short-sighted action. Okay, the method contains 7 steps. The first, state the problem. It requires the user in concern to clearly state the problem, identify all the conflict of interest and dilemma in the problem. Then do the fact check. In fact, for whatever decision we make, we have to do fact check first. and then identify all relevant factors that will affect our decision making. Both the internal factor and external factors should be considered. So when you have all the facts and factors, then you can develop a list of options that you can make. So don't just say do or not do, yes or no. Try to find out all alternatives between yes or no, do and not do. Then for each option you devise, then you should test the option whether they are ethically feasible. There are many ethical tests, available academically. Then finally, you can make a choice based on your test results. See, you need to do so many things before you can make the decision, which is to avoid you to rush in the conclusion. We don't stop here. We also have step 7, that is to review and reflect on the previous steps. We need to we want to make sure that we do not need to face the same dilemma in the future. That's why we need to review the whole case in order to find out the solution. This subject, you have an assignment. In the assignment, you also need to use the 7-step guide to help analyze a ethics case. I will talk about it in more detail later on. So to get you familiar with this 7-step guide, today I would like to use a case to show that an engineer made a very seriously wrong decision, and then many people die. And then how do we use the 7-step guide to help this engineer to make a better decision? The case I would like to talk about today is this Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. I think you know what is a space shuttle, right? Although we do not see any more space shuttle flying in the sky, since it has already ended in 2001. But I think you still remember the Space Shuttle program is the first program that will let the spacecraft to fly back to the Earth and reuse in order to save the cost. So the Space Shuttle program started in 1981. And in the beginning few years, there were many accidents. One of the most serious one is this Challenger disaster. Challenger actually was the second space shuttle. The first one is Columbia. So on this 10th flight, Challenger, on 28 January 1986, Challenger was burned into pieces just 2 minutes after launching. In this accident, all 7 crew members, died in the accident, including this lady. This lady, Miss Christa McAuliffe, she was not a professional astronaut. She was just a teacher. She joined the teacher in space project and died in the accident. Before I go on to analyze the case, let me briefly discuss the structure of a space shuttle. I think you know this is a space shuttle, right? So basically, a space shuttle contains 3 parts. In the middle is the orbiter. This is where the crew member located. And you can also find a compartment here where you can put some useful things inside, such as a satellite, such that you can put it into the outer space. This is the only part that will fly back to the Earth and be used. And besides that, you can also find 2 rockets, solid rocket booster. Later on, we call it SRB. I think you know that if you want to fly anything to the outer space, you need to have a very big acceleration, in order to get away from the gravitational force of the Earth. So this SRB provides the required acceleration. And the fuel to drive all this operation is stored in the external tank. So both the external tank and SRB will be detached from the space shuttle before it flies to the outer space. And the culprit of the whole disaster is this SRB, solid rocket booster. Obviously, this rocket is very big, so it does not come in one piece, but was contained 4 segments. They were both together at the launching site. So because they are both together, that's why they must be joined in between segments. And in order to avoid the hot gas inside the rocket to leak out from the joint, the designer of the SRB installed a plastic gasket, they call it O-ring, try to seal the joint, okay? But in fact, right after the design of this SRB, people in the company know that the sealing effect of the O-ring can be significantly degraded when working in a cold environment. How cold? 12 degrees Celsius. So if the SRB work under 12 degrees Celsius, the sealing effect of the O-ring can be significantly degraded. Usually, when there is an accident, there must be many reasons add together in order to lead to lead to the accident. In fact, in the evening, okay, before the launching, the launching site experienced a 1 in 100 years low temperature, -8 degrees. Okay, although the launch was delayed to the next day in the afternoon, such that the temperature rose a little bit to 2 degrees Celsius, which is still much lower than the threshold. So, when launching, one of the gaskets shrunk due to the low temperature and allowed hot gas to leak out of the jar. So there's some hot gas leak out. So the hot gas melt the metal strut connecting the SRB and ET, and then the SRB punch a hole in the ET, and the whole thing explode. So I think you know the result in this case. At the first run, it seems that the whole accident is just a normal engineering accident. It's due to the malfunction of a component of the SRB. But after some investigation, people found there are many human factors involved in this accident, and the accident actually could be avoided. In order to illustrate the human factor in the accident, let me just briefly review the parties involved in the accident. So I think NASA, you know, right? NASA is a government organization in the US responsible for the space program. And Morton Tycho, later on I call it MT, okay? MT is a private company that received a contract from NASA to design, manufacture, and operate the SRB. So obviously, MT is a very big company. There are many people there. The ones who were involved in this accident are these people. Okay, so Mason, J.E. Mason, okay, who was the senior vice president at that time. You may consider that he is the boss of the whole organization involved in this event. And then Wickens and Kilminster, they are also the vice president, more responsible for the administration. On the engineering side, Mr. Robert Nunn, okay, was the vice president of engineering. He oversees everything about the development design of the SRB. Under him, there are many engineers. One of them, Roger Bosbury, okay, he was the chief engineer of MT at the time and is known to be the whistleblower of the accident. He was the first one who gave warning to the company about the dangers of using the O-ring in low temperature. So after the accident, he left MT and and was frequently invited to speak on engineering ethics in different universities. So the analysis will be made from his angle. So I'd like you to remember these two guys, Bosbury and Nunn. Okay. Right. Let me rewind the timeline to the time when the Space Shuttle program was first approved in 1973. In fact, at that time, NASA and MT had already a very good relationship. So they have an agreement to let MT to develop this SRB. So after 2 years of design, the NASA approved the design of MT of the SRB. However, right after the approval of the design, MT recognized a problem about the fuel joints. There's O-ring, okay, but they do not have any evidence because the whole thing has not been in field test. The O-ring and the joint was still used in Columbia in its first launch. in 1981. Then, after a few launches, MT found more and more problems about the fuel drop, but they are considered them as a minor, okay? Because in all these launches, they are made in some warm environment. So in this case, the problem found was not so serious. That's why President Ronald Reagan declared the operational phase of the space shuttle in 1982 July. But this is a very serious, important implication of the whole case. It means that the project is no longer in the R&D phase anymore. So if MT found any problem about the fusion, they cannot redesign the whole thing. They can only add some patches to amend the problem. Now, from 1982 to 1985, okay, there are many launches of the space shuttle, and the problem of the O-ring become more obvious. So MT create a task force. Okay, we have a task force and undertook relevant review. The task force include Boesbury. Boesbury was very active in the task force. He did many experiments in order to find out the problem of the O-ring. In July 1985, half a year before the disaster, he has already some evidence that show that O-ring will lose its effect at 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, so Boesbury issued a written warning to MT about the dangers of using fusion in low temperature. Then a review team was established, but however, no specific action was taken because, as I mentioned before, the whole thing is under operational phase. MT cannot make any redesign of the whole thing. Then the problem dragged until the evening before the disaster, January 27, 1986. As I mentioned before, in that night, the temperature down to the historically low to -X degree. At that time, Boesbury was so concerned of using the SRB at just a low temperature. So he persuaded Lund to contact NASA to hope to cancel the launch. Lund, as the head of engineering, also at the time believed that the launch should be canceled. So after received the contact from MT, NASA has a telephone conference with MT in order to find out what has happened. You know, at that time we can talk with you by Zoom, but at that time, meeting can only be done by telephone. So this means that although they have some evidence about the problem O-ring, they cannot present everything to NASA because just a telephone conference. So there may be some miscommunication between NASA and MT at that time. In the meeting, Boesbury tried to present evidence he has about the problem of the O-ring. He suggests the launch should be canceled or wait until the O-ring temperature rose about 12 degrees Celsius. Originally, Boesbury was quite confident that NASA will cancel the launch when he presented those evidence. To his surprise, NASA did not agree to cancel or too much delay the launch. There are many conspiracy theories why NASA insists to launch, but they are just some rumors, so we are not going to discuss here. Anyway, NASA believed that the data presented by Boesbury were uncertain and not conclusive. So the board was kicked back to MT because NASA has already indicated to MT that they disagree to delay the launch. So if MT insists on delaying the launch, MT need to bear all the liability. You know, MT and NASA has a kind of a contract, okay? So if the problem, the delay, is due to the malfunction of the SRB, then MT will bear all the liability, a huge financial liability. So MT executives are very much concerned about it. They offer a 5-minute meeting, okay, with all MT members at the time. So all executives, including Mason, who is a boss, Lun, the other executive, and engineer, Bosbury, join the meeting. But because it is a face-to-face meeting, so Bosbury can present all the evidence to his senior, okay, and also the executive, okay, face-to-face. So in the meeting, particularly, Bosbury present two photos taken at two launches, on a warm day and on a cold day. For the launch, on the warm day, okay, the picture show that there are some gray mark on the surface of SRB. But for the launch on a cold day at 12 degrees Celsius, the picture show that there's some black mark on the surface of the SRB. Why there were some black marks? Because there were some hot gas leak out from the joint on the O-ring and burn the grease on the surface of the SRB. That's why there are some black marks. So these two photos has already indicated that when the O-ring worked at a temperature lower than 12 degrees Celsius, there will be problem. Hot gas will leak out. So there was a fierce argument between the engineering team and the management team, whether the flight should be canceled or not. Okay, so obviously the executive, the senior management want to continue to launch the space shuttle because otherwise the company to bear a very serious financial liability. Mason even talked to Lun. You should take off your engineering hat and put on your management hat. Obviously, it's not about the hat Mr. Lun was wearing on that day. This statement just say that Mason want Lun to not only care about the technical problem, but also the relationship with his most important customer, NASA. So due to the pressure from the senior and also the other executive, Lun originally he opposed to launch, but he changed his mind and agreed to launch with the other senior executive. So MT came to the conclusion that the launch should be approved. Obviously, NASA welcomed this decision. Then Challenger was finally cleared to launch at 11:38 a.m. at 2 degrees Celsius, way lower than the threshold. Okay, so the result, you know. So after the accident, President Ronald Reagan formed a commission to investigate the whole disaster. The commission used about 1.5 years and found that the cause of the accident was hot gas pouring past the O-ring in the fuel joint on the right SRB and found no other potential causes for the disaster. So the whole disaster is just about the SRB. The report was critical of NASA and MT and emphasized that both community organizations has overlooked evidence that indicate the potential danger with the SRB fuel joints. So they make some recommendations, including to redesign the SRB and also to restructure the space shuttle program and to install a NASA administrator to oversee all safety issues. The whole thing dragged the space shuttle program by 2 years. It means that in the following 2 years, no space shuttle was flying, okay, due to the accident. In fact, this space shuttle program is quite famous. You can find this in many books in engineering ethics. Many people have discussed the case and do a lot of investigation about the case. And the two things that most people talk about is, first, whistleblowing. I think you know what is whistleblowing, right? It's about an activity of a person, often an employee, reviewing information about activity within a private or public organization that is deemed illegal, immoral, illicit, unsafe, and fraudulent. It is often the most efficient way to identify the wrongdoing of a company, okay? Because very often the wrongdoing of a company can be difficult to find out outside. We need the information from inside to provide what is the wrongdoing on an organization. So you may think that as the whistleblower is so effective in finding out the wrongdoing of the organization, so the organization will welcome this whistleblower. But in reality, most whistleblowers often face retaliation for the disclosure of the problem. Because very often, whistleblowers need to go over their boss' head to report the thing to the senior management, or even to the public. Okay, so their boss or even the organization, they do not like whistleblower. Okay, very often whistleblower need to be reassigned their job position, or may even need to leave the company. Okay, due to disclosure of the wrongdoing of the organization. In Eastern country like China, Japan, South Korea, okay, we are taught to respect our senior, respect our organization. So usually we don't want to be whistleblower. Even that there's some problem in our organization, we will just speak softly to my boss, okay, not to raise it to the public. But in Western country, they're more open to that. Some company even have a training program to teach people how to be a whistleblower, or how to handle whistleblowers. Yeah, we need to handle whistleblowers because there are some whistleblowers use whistleblowing as a tool for personal interest. Yeah, we need to handle that kind of a bad faith whistleblowers. Later on, we have another lecture which I have more discussion about whistleblowing. Another thing that people talk about from the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster is this one, groupthink. What is a groupthink? I think you may have encountered that kind of situation before. You go to a big meeting, okay? There are many people, but nobody want to speak anything. Only the chairman do all the speech. All people in the meeting just nod their head, okay, yes, 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 okay. They never want to be unpopular. They never want to be opposing the chairman. So even they're asked to speak anything, they just say something that in line with the chairman's suggestion. So this is good thing. It's just a phenomenon that occurs when the desire for good consensus overrides people's common sense, decides to present alternative, critical position, or express an unpopular opinion. So the decision made by Lun in the Challenger is a good example of the result of good thing. Okay, Mr. Lun, because he was afraid of the pressure from the senior and the other executive, they just agree with the senior. Okay, even if he know that it is a violation of code ethics in approving the launch. In fact, when so many people go into a meeting, if everyone can speak up their opinion, then we can choose the best opinion to do something, right? But if everyone just shut up and let the chairman say everything, then team will fall back into individual. And you need to spend the time of so many people in the meeting. So time also means money. So the whole thing becomes very inefficient and become a waste. So there are many studies about good thing, okay, how to avoid good thing, but this is not the focus of this lecture. So maybe we can pause here. Now, let's play a game. So we have seen that Mr. Robert Lun, okay, have made a very wrong decision in approving the launch due to the pressure of the senior. So if you were asked to make the decision, okay, for Mr. Lun, can you make a better decision? As I mentioned at the very beginning, we need to have a more systematic approach to help us to make decisions. So let us use the 7-step guide to see if we can make a better decision. For the 7-step guide, we know that the first step is to state the problem. Okay, so we need to state the problem or issue at hand and identify potential conflict of interest. Remember, we need to be more specific and concise when stating a problem in order to have a clear understanding of what needs to be addressed. So what's the problem Mr. Lun faced at the time? The problem are if he endorsed the launch, it is obviously a violation of the code of ethics of engineer, since it ignored the safety and health of the crew members. But if he rejects the launch, it would seem to be disloyal to the company and may lead to huge financial liability. So this is a dilemma and he faced at the time. So after stating the problem, that means to do fact check. No matter what decision we're going to make, we should do fact check first. So what are the facts at this time? So first of all, Bowsbury has already presented the evidence in the meeting. So those evidence has already shown that there is a high probability that the launch will fail, since the current air temperature is even lower than any of the previous launches. So this is a fact. Another fact is that the contract with NASA had already shown that the compensation will be huge if the launch is cancelled or delayed due to the malfunction of the SLB. So it is another fact. Then we also know that engineers should ensure the integrity and hold paramount the safety and health and well-being of the public in performing their professional duty. This is clearly stated in the Code of Ethics of Engineer. So it is also a fact. So these are the facts that Mr. Dunn should have at that time. Then we will find out all factors that will affect the decision making. Both the internal factor and external factor should be considered. What is the internal factor? The internal factor is the other factor that will affect oneself, that is Mr. Dunn at that time. So for example, since he was the vice president of engineering, so he must be held responsible for canceling or delaying the launch due to the malfunction of the SLB. He may be sued, he may be fired, and at least his reputation in the industry will also be hurt. So it will be difficult for him to find another job in the industry later on. But if he agreed to launch, his liability will be even higher if there is really an accident, because he's a professional engineer. So if he violated the code of ethics, he may be sued, and at least he'll be feel guilty throughout his life for having so many people die due to his decision. Then, how about the external factor? The external factor are the factor from external body that will affect the decision. And to find out this external factor, we need to first consider who are the external stakeholders. Both in this case, they should be NASA. Okay, NASA should be one of the external stakeholders. Obviously, they will strongly oppose the cancellation or delay proposal. And the company is also another external stakeholder. So the company will have a huge financial burden if canceling or delaying the launch. And all the other executives in the meeting have already agreed to launch. Obviously, the crew member is another stakeholder. So they will definitely lose their life if an accident happens. And the family of the crew member will also be seriously affected. And the country, whole country, can also be an external stakeholder, because if there is an accident, the space shuttle program will be seriously affected. It may be delayed. You know, at that time, there were many other space programs in Europe and Russia. So if the space shuttle program delayed, then they may lose to the competitor. Right. So now we have identified all the factors, and we also have the facts. Then we can develop a list of options. As I mentioned before, we should think creatively to avoid framing the decision as a simple yes or no, or do or not do. Okay. So according to the situation, I can propose 6 options, okay, for Mr. Lin to choose. First, change the original decision and agree with the other executive to approve the launch. This is exactly the decision Mr. Lin made at that time. And then the second one is similar to the first one. Still agree with the other executive to approve the launch, but inform NASA that MT has serious concern about the safety of the launch. This is a common way that management people like to use, which is about shifting responsibility. So the whole idea is that although I agree to launch, but we have serious concern about the safety of the launch. So if NASA insists to launch, NASA will bear all the responsibility. So it's just a way to shift the responsibility to NASA. The third one is similar, also to shift the responsibility, but not to NASA, to the executive. This one is now to continue disapprove the launch, but let the other executive make the decision. That is to abstain from making the decision. Let the other executive make the decision. Let them to approve the launch. Okay, so try to shift the responsibility to the other executive. No matter you agree with them or not, but these three approach, okay, no matter what, cannot stop the accident. Okay, they just shift the responsibility from myself to the other people. Option 4 to 6 may stop the accident. Okay, now first of all, the fourth one, we disapprove the launch. Okay, and then we report the case to the president of the company with the hope to overruling the possible approval decision of the other executive. Usually, the boss of a company should have a more global view about the problem. He may disapprove the launch since it can lead to serious consequence. Okay. However, if you report the case to the president, you need to go over your boss head. Most boss, okay, they do not like their subordinate go over the head and report the case to the big boss. Okay, so if Lun maybe do take this option, he may need to face the retaliation of his boss, that's Mason particularly. The fifth option is even make it more public. So report the case to the administrator of NASA. Although those people working with the MT, NASA people working with MT, they want to launch, but the big boss of NASA may think differently. Okay, if the launch can be that dangerous. Of course, now you go over not only the boss head, but also the organization head to NASA to report the case. Then obviously your boss and the organization will not like you. Then last one, make it even more public. Okay, report to the media. It may be the most effective way to stop the accident. Okay, but of course, more people hate you in this case. Right. So these are the 6 options I can suggest to Mr. Lun at the time. Now, when we have the option, then we need to test the option, whether they are ethically feasible. There are many tests we can use, ethical tests we can use. The common one are these 7. Harm test. Harm test is about whether the decision could cause harm to individual, group, or society at large. So if your decision can lead to cause harm to other people, then obviously you will fail the harm test. Publicity test is about whether the decision can be justified or defended in the public's eye. Usually, public see things in common sense. So it means that this publicity test is about whether your decision can be defended in common sense. Defensibility test is about whether your decision can be defended before a congressional committee. Usually, that kind of committee contains experts. So this test is about whether your decision can be defended in front of some experts. Reversibility test is about whether the option was a good choice if you were adversely affected by it. Let's say, for example, if your son is one of the crew members, will you agree the option? Something like that. College tests, professional tests, and organization tests are about whether the decision will be welcomed by your colleagues and professional bodies in the organization. So these are common 7 ethical tests that people use, okay, to test our option. So when we have this test, then we use them to test our option 1 by 1. For each option, we use these 7 tests to see if they are feasible. And here, I used a different color to indicate whether the test is failed or pass. So if the test is failed, then the color will be red. And in the option pass the test, then with a green color. So say for example, for the first option, change the original decision and agree with the other executive to approve the launch. So obviously, in this case, there will be accident. People will die. That's why you will fail the harm test. And because you agree to launch, that's why you also fail the publicity test and defensibility test. You cannot defend yourself in front of the public and the expert. You will also fail the reversibility test. Okay, you will be adversely affected by it, so you will never want to launch. And you will also fail the professional test. No professional body will agree the engineer to violate their code of ethics. But you may pass the college test and organization test. Your college and organization will welcome your decision to agree to launch. So you can see that some tests, some options will have more red than green, some options will have more green than red. Say for example, for the 4th option, you have more green than red because you will disapprove the launch and report the case to the president of the company. So because there will be no accident, then you pass the harm test. And because you disapprove the launch, you can defend yourself in front of the public and the expert. And also you will pass the reversibility test because you disapprove the launch. And also your professional body and the company will also welcome your decision. But your colleagues will not like your decision. That's why you fail the college test. Normally, we choose an option when it has more green than red. But in some situations, we put a higher weighting in some tests than the other. So in general, we should see the test result holistically before we make the final conclusion. But in this case, perhaps we should choose the option 4, okay, because it has more green than red. So we make a choice and choose option 4, disapprove the launch and report the case to the president. Right. We do not just stop here because we want to make sure that we do not need to face the same dilemma in the future. That's why we have step 7 to review the whole case. When we review the whole case, we will find that the dilemma actually came from the ignorance of the warning of the engineering team on the O-ring design. As I mentioned at the very beginning, in fact, the company knows very well before the disaster, the problem of the O-ring, but they just drag on and on until the accident happened. So if the warning had been dealt with earlier, there would have been more time for making the remedial action without the need to cancel or delay the launch. Another thing that we should do is about our contract with MT and with NASA. Although NASA was the biggest customer of MT, it was unreasonable to have to entertain the request to launch under untested weather conditions. As I mentioned before, the SLB had never been tested at a temperature lower than 12 degrees Celsius. But at the time when the SLB was used, it was 2 degrees Celsius. So it is an unreasonable working condition. So future contract with NASA should include statement to allow MT to withdraw the service under unreasonable condition. In this case, MT does not need to bear the huge financial liability and walk away from the contract. Right? So it may seem to you that the decision made by Mr. Lun is quite obvious. It should not be too difficult for him to make the decision at the time to disapprove the launch. But in fact, if you are put in the same situation at that time, you will also find that it is very much difficult to make the decision because at that time you do not know the result. When Bloomsbury present all those evidence to you at that time, you can actually, the accident only has a high probability of happening, but does not surely happen. But if Mr. Lun cancel or delay the launch, he will surely trigger the wrath of NASA and make him bear all the responsibility. He may be fired, or at least his position in the company will seriously jeopardized. So although we understand why Mr. Lun made this decision, we do not endorse his decision. It's because a responsible engineer should always value the safety of the public above their own interests. Yeah, as a professional engineer, we should always prepare to sacrifice our own interests for the interests of the public. Particularly, it's about the safety of the public. And it's just because, just the reason why we are professional. And in some country, we are respectable professional. People respect us because they believe we will sacrifice our own interests for the interests of the public. But some of you may say that if we always need to sacrifice our own interests, how can we earn my living? So it's a question that I would like to discuss in the next lecture. Okay, so to now, do you have any question? Do you have any opinion you want to raise? You mean the assignment topic? Yeah, so let's talk about the assignment topic now. So I think some of you, if you take a look at the Blackboard, you will find that the assignment has been posted. So on the Blackboard page, you can find a folder, reflective writing and oral presentation. You can just click inside. Then you can find, you will know that the assignment contains two parts: case study and reflective writing and presentation video. Okay, so actually, for the assignment, you need to make a ethics case study and do an analysis, then draft a report and submit it through this link to the Blackboard. The report will be redirected to Turnitin. If you do not know what Turnitin is, a software that will check the similarity of the report with the others. Okay, so if the similarity index is high, it means that there's a high chance that your report commit plagiarism. So make sure that you write your report on your own. And then, based on the report, you also need to prepare a video and submit it through this link to the Blackboard. Okay. For the detail of the report, you can see there's a file here. Okay, case study and reflective writing or PDF. So let's go to the detail of this this file. Okay, so this is the instruction file for the assignment. So here you can see that you are required to make a thorough study of an ethics case with topics from the list below. So there are 10 areas, okay, that you can do ethics study. Say, for example, you are interested in whistleblowing or wrongdoing, then you can find a ethics case under this topic and do an analysis. Okay, you can freely choose any case. It can be real one or a fictitious one, maybe from a movie or even from a novel. Okay, so it can be from anywhere. But no matter what, remember, the case reference must be reported for verification. So it cannot be something created by you. You need to be from somewhere else. Okay, from a book, from a web link, from a movie, from etc., etc. Okay, so the case reference must be reported. And then you cannot select case that have been discussed in the class. Okay. So, and also later on, I will tell you all the cases that will be discussed in the class. So anyway, you cannot select the cases that have been discussed in the class. So the report should have 3 sections. For the first section, it is an abstract. It should be no more than 150 words. The abstract should contain 3 things. First, it should have a summary of the whole case. Then it should indicate which topic from the list above the case belongs to and explain why. So you think that your case is about whistleblowing of wrongdoing, then spell out here and explain why it belongs to this category. Then state the main reference where the information of the case can be found to allow verification. But bear in mind that failure in providing any of the above information will result in mark deduction of 20%. Okay, so make sure that you will provide all this information in the abstract. Then after the abstract, there should be 2 parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is about case background, okay, case background. So you need to discuss the background of the case and also the ethical principle that were lauded and the harm that could be or was caused at individual, professional, business, and society level. So this is about Part A. So feel free to include any figures, table, and chart into your discussion. And Part B is about ethical decision making. So based on the case, you need to play the role of the main character in the case, something similar to what we have done in the class, and make use of the 7-step guide in ethical decision making to help the main character to make a better decision. Now, I have a question. In this case study, smoking in workplace cannot discuss it. So now, then you need to do analysis whether smoking in workspace, if it will fulfill any of the case category here. Okay, so you need to explain why smoking in workspace follow or inside any one of the category in these 10 categories here. Okay. Right. So about the also based on the report, you need to make a summary in a presentation video of about 15 minutes. Okay. The video should be in MP4 format. So remember, you need to have your face, okay, in the video, throughout the whole video. So if you're not sure about the format, take a look at the lecture video. This is the format we expect you to use. About the assessment, I will draw attention to the assessment rubric that has been posted on the Blackboard. Take a look of it, okay? You can find some detail of how we assess your report. And I would like to pay particular attention to the following requirement. Report will get an F grade without marking if the similarity index is higher than 40%, or the AI index is over 90%. Okay, these 2 indexes are given by Turnitin. Okay, then second, the presentation video should show your face, okay, throughout the whole video. As mentioned before, failure to do so, you will get an F grade. Okay, so make sure that you know the format of how to make this video. Again, if you're not sure, take a look at the lecture video, then you know the format required. The last thing is about using AI. Okay, you are welcome to use AI to assist in information collection and report writing for Part A, case background. Okay, but mind one thing, because we will check the similarity of your report, but AI sometimes can extract directly the content of the other report. Okay, so if you let AI to automatically generate the report for you, you may have a high similarity index. Okay, so perhaps I always encourage you to use AI to information collection only. And you really use AI to generate report for you in Part A, then try to rewrite the sentence before you submit the report to us. And also, part B and the abstract, okay, must be written by you. So if you use AI to generate part B and abstract, then you may be considered as plagiarism. So be careful about it. Right. So do you have any further question about the assignment? Yeah, I got a question. Can we upload file multiple times or can we only upload them once? You can upload file multiple times. We will only count the last one. Okay, another question. I would like to ask which case your upcoming course will cover. I will put a list on the Blackboard. Later on, you can check it out. Okay, a list will be posted on the Blackboard. Okay. Any other question? But the deadline of the report and video is March 23rd. So it means that you have about 7 weeks, okay, to do this assignment. Okay. If there are no more questions, then that's the end of today. So see you next week. Bye bye.